Anyone remember WildStar, the fabled World of Warcraft killer? Oh yeah.
WildStar, the MMO that burned too bright. I played this game once.
For as long as the
I played that game with my friend for roughly 20 minutes, and then we never logged in again.
genre has existed, the MMORPG market has been full of cutthroat competition. But through it all, one thing has remained constant. World of War.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
There
Tips
he
out.
is. Just a random video showing tips out.
Wow.
Absolutely destroying some kid.
Dude, that kid probably is AFK also. The best type of destroy.
World
That
of
is so
Warcraft.
funny to me.
Of course, these days, the story is much different. But back then,
Yeah.
competing with World of Warcraft was all that mattered. While every now and then, a new MMORPG is touted as the next quote-unquote WoW killer, none have been able to actually get the job done.
Well, there
He's gonna say the same thing. World of Warcraft killed itself.
was one that got the job done. It was called WoW.
Yep.
In 2014,
True,
there was one game
true.
that many considered a serious contender to actually dethrone the king. And though it had all the makings of a great game, it never managed to live up to the hype. This is WildStar.
I heard that WildStar was a good game. The main problem that it had was the end game had a bunch of like annoying attunements that nobody wanted to do. And then like people just stopped playing it because of that.
I heard that WildStar was touted at the start like the super hardcore World of Warcraft as a game, when it's gonna take you 15 years to reach level 2, and after everyone just said, it's a little bit too hardcore for me, make it easier. And then the developers like, okay, now you you create a character and you have already beat the game. And that was kinda it for the game.
WildStar was an
And
MMORPG
this got
created
shut
by
down,
Carbine
by the way.
Studios, a company
Yeah.
founded in 2005 by 17 former members of the original World of Warcraft development team. The game began production that same year, but was only announced to the public in 2000.
That just proves what I have been saying all this time. No one knows why MMOs are successful. You can recreate World of Warcraft Classic by the exact same people who made it, and it's still not gonna be good. Because no one actually understands what in combination makes it good.
2007 as an unnamed MMO
NCSoft, they're the ones that are making Throne and Liberty now.
project. Later that
Oh
same year,
my.
Carbine was acquired by
That's
NCSoft,
bad.
a South Korean company known for its distribution of MMO series like Guild Wars and Lineage. While this was key in potentially helping the game reach a wider audience, it may have done more harm than good, as later on, some anonymous Carbine Studio employees revealed that the production supervisors imposed their vision of the game on the developers and drastically changed the product from what they may have once intended. Despite these issues, the game officially released on June 3rd, 2014.
I remember the day that this came out. This was like during, I think, I'm pretty sure it was during WOD. And I remember
time
I would watch
to release
Twitch,
something.
and I saw Towley streaming WildStar. I saw Towley streaming WildStar all those
I also watched someone stream WildStar for a bit, but it got boring real fast.
years ago. And I watched a little bit of it, and I was like, this sucks. I never
True.
played it.
Mostly positive reviews, and a
I
decent
played it
starting
a
player
long
base
time
of around
after that, though,
450,000 players,
Not
and
bad.
in the process, earned $28 million in revenue.
Wow.
The strategy
Not bad.
of many MMORPGs at the time was to try and replicate the success of World of Warcraft by making games that were similar. You have a formula that works, why try and change it? WildStar didn't take this route, and that's one of the reasons.
Well, that was their marketing.
Yeah,
is that
true.
they were WildStar was supposed to be the MMO for hardcore WoW players because WoW has gotten too easy. But they
Didn't
didn't
work.
realize that like WoW was popular because it was easy. Because as I said, man,
True.
it's not a surprise that hardcore classic popped off as soon as Old War came out. Most people that play video games are fucking garbage at them.
Makes
that many
sense.
had high expectations for it. As Jeremy Gaffney, the executive producer and design director for the game, said in a Reddit AMA, quote, "We just crunched for 6 years. We want to do anything but WoW. But at the end of the day, we do what is fun. We're not trying to be different. for difference's sake.
Okay.
This was a message that remained true for many aspects of WildStar,
smart.
starting with the engine that the game was going to use. While most game developers will stick with the popular ones like Unity and Unreal Engine, Carbine decided to go against the grain and make their
I mean, sticking with Unity is kind of a smart choice if I'm being real here.
own, simply
That's a
titled
lot.
Engine. Obviously, this was incredibly ambitious for the first game of a brand new studio,
Yeah.
but Steve Moret, the lead software engineer of Carbine, felt that the whole team was both prepared and excited for the challenges, saying, quote,
Well, I know whenever New World did this, there were no problems at all.
back in 2005, we knew we
I
had
mean, New World's a special case, let's all be real here for a minute.
a few years of R&D time, so we evaluated a few off-the-shelf engines, and while these engines would let us show off some fancy graphics in year one, they didn't look like they'd scale to our needs 5+ years later. We decided to spend a majority of our work
I mean, the style of the game, I think actually it aged pretty well.
Yeah, that's true.
Whenever you look at a lot of the assets and everything, it didn't look that bad.
Yeah. It's not a bad game, but yeah, it looks like a good game, to be honest. Sadly, the gameplay is not really there.
the correct solution for each problem.
Look at
It
that.
was
That looks
obvious to
pretty
me
good.
from day one that the entire team already knew what we were signing up for. In fact, most were excited and overjoyed to try and start over. This time, not making the same mistakes that might have been made before. This was the foundation for the cartoony, stylized, sci-fi themed MMO focused around the idea of allowing players to experience the
I mean, it was cartoony, but man, look at those jugs. Pretty good.
game in a very individualistic manner. This was done through an additional leveling system called paths. When creating a character, players would choose one of 4 paths: soldier, explorer, scientist, and settler. These paths were based on the Bartle player types, which is kind of like a political compass, but for gamers. The paths unlock extra content catered to the style the player
Adding technically politics to your game. What could possibly go wrong? Start the fight in the comments.
chooses, giving unique bonuses and rewards in the process.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. Yeah, for casuals and hardcore players, PvPers, yeah, it makes sense.
Although it may have been a good idea on
I played this game for a bit. I never even... I don't know. I don't know if I encountered a single one of these mechanics. I don't even actually remember what I chose.
paper, the system wasn't quite fully developed on launch, and felt sluggish, especially when combined with the game's slow leveling system. While this particular mechanic was pretty underwhelming, the combat system had the opposite effect. One of the main highlighted and significantly advertised features was WildStar's telegraphing combat system.
Yeah, you can actually see what the fuck happens.
Typical
A
MMOs
little
use what
bit,
is
it
called
was
tab
bad.
target. World of Warcraft is a perfect example of this, where most of your attacks automatically go
my
to the
God.
enemy and you don't really need to aim it at all. It's
Bruh.
been a
Oh my
regular
God,
part of
there he
MMOs
is
for
again.
quite some time, and allows those who are less mechanically gifted or don't have very good internet connections the opportunity to participate in combat. WildStar was coming into a different world than World of Warcraft,
Yeah.
and most serious gamers had a pretty good internet connection. With this in mind, they decided to create a combat system where attacks needed to be aimed manually. Attacks and heals would telegraph with zones being displayed.
I feel like having to aim every single attack like in New World is exhausting. I
Yep,
just think
it's
it is. I think
tedious.
it's just fucking exhausting.
I honestly never understood the problem people had with tab targeting. It's a good system. Like, there's an action system and you click, and things happen in front of you, but what's wrong with tab targeting? I don't understand. It's like tab targeting is supposed to be this bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. It's probably the most successful system we have in MMOs, if I'm being completely honest here. I never understood why people want to get away from tab targeting as it's like some kind of boogeyman.
Like, I have no problem having to aim skills, but having to aim auto attacks is like, oh, fuck, man. Like, we're gonna be playing this for like 1,000 hours? I gotta aim every fucking auto attack? Oh my god. It's more engaging? I mean, then why do every game that does it doesn't work out? Like I feel like it sucked in New World.
I mean, more engaging doesn't mean it's good. And in New World, combat is like one of the biggest flaws. Either in New World, combat feels super good or super shit. And you know what that is dependent upon? Can you two-shot the thing you're killing? If you can, combat's good. If you can't, you understand that combat actually is like absolute ass.
I don't know, man. Like, Final Fantasy has auto attacks. WoW has auto attacks. Fuck.
on the ground, allowing players to move into the zone or dash out before they impacted. Auto-targeting was included as well, but a well-placed free targeting attack would always catch more enemies. The combat system was paired with a very free-flowing, fluid movement system that allowed players to double jump, sprint, and dash all over the place.
I feel like every game, it's mandatory for every video game from now on to have double jump.
This movement system was a core component of WildStar's gameplay, and was used for jumping puzzles, speed races, and extensively in combat to evade attacks and reposition. While the combat and movement system was praised and worked well for raids and general PvE combat, it sometimes led to a comically chaotic PvP experience.
Man!
Yeah, like, look at this garbage.
What is a moody mask?
See, while combat telegraphs help players to see incoming projectiles and attacks, in larger PvP battles, there are so many projectiles flying around that combat telegraphs tended to meld into one giant red circle, with players helplessly
I mean, this is an obvious problem, by the way. And this already happens if there's just 3 people. Sometimes even with 2 people, this kind of happens. It's insanity. And this, I think, was the biggest downfall of WildStar. It's just bad.
Around trying to dodge damage. But that's not to say that the PvP was bad. In terms of game modes, you had traditional 2v2, 3v3, 5v5, and 15v15 battles.
I'm gonna be honest, every time somebody says that, like, they're making a game that's PvE focused and they don't even give a fuck about PvP at all,
that's honestly
it makes me excited for that game.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's almost never games that are not PvP focused that have fun PvP. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, nobody gives a fuck about PvP and MMO.
Well, PvP is also, like, a kind of a niche thing, if we're being completely honest. Most people don't PvP. PvP was the only thing I did when I was a kid. I was one of the guys who stood outside of Ogrimmod and I just dueled all day. Sometimes I got drunk and literally won people just by spamming backstab, which is hilarious. But that's a different story. But yeah, PvP is interesting. I think when you're a kid and you want to kind of be, like, good and shit. But PvP is super niche. So honestly, if a game says, yeah, we're not actually going to consider PvP as a serious thing, I think that's a win. They can always add PvP later on.
The only reason why people cared about it is because back in the day, there was nothing else, no other way to express, you know, like, third person, like, movement in the same way. And then MOBAs came out, and PvP for MMOs, I think, became kind of irrelevant.
Okay.
But the game's main attraction for PvP was a mode called Warplot. Warplot was a large-scale 40 versus 40 battle that had players battling on plots of land customized by the players themselves. This customization meant that every battlefield was different, leading to a new experience every time you jumped into a new game. While Warplot was an interesting PvP game mode, one of its main issues was the difficulty of getting 80 players to queue up at the same time, something that became increasingly problematic as the player base continued to shrink. While PvP may have been a mixed bag, the game's housing system is remembered fondly. Players could own plots of land in the sky and customize everything from the ground to the decor to the background music. On their plot, players were free to build as they wished and could invite other players to go to their houses. Gameplay features were also included in your sky plot, including things like crafting benches, personal dungeons, and portals to raids. To many players, this was one of the best parts of the game, and resulted in...
Yeah, that's really impressive. I think that, I mean, especially for a game that came out literally, like, what, 10 years ago? Like, that's
some incredible builds, like this skate park designed for the game's hoverboard mount. PvP and player housing may have had its fans, but the main attraction to WildStar was its endgame raiding content. Incidentally, only one of the few endgame attractions that the game had to offer. Large-scale raids are commonly viewed as a valuable feature that most, if not all, MMOs just have to have. However, the amount of coordination, preparation, and sheer number of people that raids require makes the whole ordeal incredibly taxing.
Well, it's hard. I mean, like, that's really what it is. Like, doing raids like that is fucking hard. Like, so let's look at this boss, Chromagus. Alright, guys.
Stand in the corner.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hit him. And then
then someone yells back and you go back, and if you don't have a little bit of those time sands and you get frozen in the wrong situation, it is what it is.
So, okay, basically I'm gonna call out to get behind the wall.
Yep.
And then you get behind the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, we following? All right, good. Okay.
Hey, say what you will. A lot of fun was had there.
So then after you get behind the wall, then you get out from behind the wall, then you keep hitting them again.
Yeah.
That's it.
Also, the same thing happened with Wing Buffet and all of that good stuff. It's funny. Good times, though. Good times. Simple,
and
but
then,
good.
Oh, fucking 5 people are dead. They're all dead.
It's fine.
So there it is. That's the reason why these big raids worked. It's because they were a joke, and anybody could do them. You can't put 40 dipshits together and do anything.
Incredibly taxing, but as a result...
I mean, I wasn't in a hardcore guild. We were literally 40 dipshits. Our main tank was a cook from Italy, who was literally constantly fucking high on meth. And he still was a cook. Admittedly, being a cook and using drugs kind of goes hand in hand, so you can't even blame him for that. But he sometimes... His bot that auto-farmed shit while he was at work, mining, sometimes fucked up and started spamming guild chat. when he was farming stuff. It was pretty stupid, man. Yeah, and he had Wind Fury, by the way. Yep. It was great. It was an experience, let me tell you that.
Made it feel very rewarding as well.
Yeah.
WildStar was developed to appeal specifically to this hardcore grind and payoff, and in retrospect, many speculate that this was ultimately a mistake. As players reached the level 50 cap, through an arduous questing slog that many criticized as being too long, it became quickly apparent that there was a lack of general endgame content. While hardcore PvE raiding is thought of as the main endgame feature to MMOs, that seemed to be all Carbine was focused on developing. However, even if you were one of those incredibly dedicated players that itemized correctly, got all the necessary buffs, and coordinated with 19 or 39 other players to do a raid...
Bro, imagine being colorblind. Oh.
Good times. Imagine finding out you're colorblind.
Oh, man.
To do a raid, all of you were met with some incredibly difficult encounters. WildStar's raids were praised for being creative and utilizing the fluidity of movement and the game's telegraph combat system. The raids were also panned for being very punishing of mistakes, causing exhaustion and suffering from having their difficulty repeatedly increased to try and appeal to the top % of endgame players.
So WildStar died, and then WoW was like, huh, that sounds like a good idea, let's do that!
Yep. Pretty much, honestly.
Most of which reportedly did not enjoy barely making it through the 12 boss encounters on a weekly timer. The mechanics of the bosses may have been creative, but only a small number of players even had the chance to try the content due to the high in-game requirements and players needed.
Well, like, my understanding of this, right, was that the reason why the raids fell off wasn't even because of their difficulty. It was because getting into the raid required an attunement process that was incredibly boring.
I had never heard about there even being an attunement, honestly. That's kind of interesting.
And it took too long. Like, that was my understanding. It wasn't even the quality of the raids or the difficulty of them. It was like people couldn't get into the fucking raids.
With the endgame aside, WildStar also had some more typical issues that most MMORPGs deal with. Server issues
like original WoW. Every time that somebody makes that comment, it reminds me that they didn't play original WoW.
Yeah.
Alright.
Like, when I first joined a guild, I got randomly attunement just at random. When I joined these guys and they were already doing the attunement for Molten Core. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just followed them, got the attunement, and that was it. The only annoying attunement was... Was it Anixia's Lair? Where you needed to find and talk to Rexar and do all of that jazz. That was the longest attunement, but that wasn't even a problem. Like, Classics attunements were not problematic. Burning Crusade is where attunements got pretty fucking bad, though.
Alright, so you want to get into the Molten Core? Alright, and what you gotta do? So, basically, you go into the level 50 dungeon and you click on a rock.
Yep.
Then come back to me. Alright. You're attuned. Good job. Jump through the window. And then here's BWL. Oh, you killed the guy. You got
yes,
the item?
true.
Okay,
Item.
go kill the other guy. All right, you're attuned now. Here's Nax attunement. Hey, do you have any money? Oh, you do? Great. Welcome to Nax.
Never even tried Nax.
What the fuck are y'all talking about that it was hard? What the fuck do you mean? Onyxia was the only bad one? Onyxia was a cock.
That's true.
You're right. You're right about Onyxia.
Caused high player count modes like Warplot and Raids to be unplayable, and a variety of bugs, likely due to being run on a new engine, also made it incredibly difficult for players to even get the game running. From the get-go, WildStar's player base was on a quick and steady decline. Perhaps too little too late, decisions were made in order to try and keep the game afloat. WildStar became free to play a year after its release. And
it's also like back then, you got to keep in mind too that like WoW was still like not the worst game that's ever been made. People were still happy
popular.
about WoW. Like there was still like that naive expectation that things were going to get better. And to be fair, Legion was pretty good, right? After this.
Began combining servers to keep worlds populated with the diminishing player base. However, the game was simply unable to keep going, and on September 6th, 2018, it was announced that not only were WildStar's servers being shut down, but Carbine Studios was closing as well.
Oh no.
WildStar is remembered fondly and as a valuable case study in what an MMO needs to succeed. While serious players insist...
Nah, it wasn't remembered fondly. Like,
Yeah,
I fucking hate
true.
this shit. It's like whenever a rapper dies and everybody says, I used to listen to their music. No, you fucking didn't.
True.
Like, no, it was not remembered fondly. Like, nobody liked this game. This game was dead. That's why they shut it down.
Yep.
They shut the game down because it was dead. Nobody played it. Everybody thought it was garbage.
Yep. Pretty much.
That's why. It's not like everybody. What do y'all think? Like, there's like, man, there's so many people playing this game.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a billion people not who played this game, but it got shut down for some reason. That doesn't happen, sadly.
Oh, let's shut it down. Nah, man, they shut it down because nobody fucking played it.
Yeah. Why do
that
people have
endgame
a
waiting
hard time
content is
admitting
the main
that?
appeal of an MMO game. The large casual masses need more to stay around and keep playing.
Yeah.
WildStar ended up...
And also, most...
I don't understand, by the way, why games don't do it. It's like so stupid. Nowadays, games come out and they have an end game, but they don't have a tiered system of end game. They don't have this stuff that's, 95% max rewarding, but it's super easy and everyone can do, so the casual players are okay. They don't have the 97% maximum reward stuff that slightly above casuals can do, and they don't have the 100% rewarding stuff that hardcore players can do. Why can't you just make something like that? Every tier of player has something to do.
Most people that like to pretend like they're hardcore raiders are hardcore classic World of Warcraft raiders.
True.
Just a bit different.
executing its vision pretty well, having some great ideas with its combat.
For me, right? Like, in Legion, I remember fucking Tomb of Sargeras. I quit raiding. I said, fuck this. There's too much shit going on. I'm spending all my time raiding. I'm not streaming.
Did you not download an add-on?
That didn't go well. And, like, I'm not getting anything out of this. Like, what the fuck am I doing with my time? Like, raiding all of the time, doing this boss just so somebody can do the line wrong again. I remember it was Mistress Shazreen, whatever the fuck her name was. And I just quit I quit raiding right there. I said, I'm out.
That system, PvE encounters, and player housing, but unfortunately, some decisions like the game's difficulty and the slow grind to level up had players losing interest pretty quick.
That's the thing, is like the slow grind to level up. Like, it's again, developers that, like, this is the same thing that happens with Dark Souls, right? Is like, you have these Dark Soul clone games, and they don't really, they're bad games. But because it's like, oh, this is like Dark Souls, like, oh, well, it's challenging like Dark Souls, like, they don't understand the, this is probably like, sounds like a simp way to say it. They don't understand the genius behind a game like Dark Souls or World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's a simp way to say this for sure, yeah.
They only see like the very, very narrow view of it's good because it's hard, or it's rewarding because it's long, but they don't actually see what the substance of that is.
The substance, by the way, he's talking about is the feeling of achievement when you finally learn something, accomplish it, and do it properly, finally, after putting in effort.
They just see, like, a cause and effect.
Today, private servers for the game are in development by dedicated individuals,
Oh,
but
yeah,
for the most
I
part,
have
the
heard
game
that.
is largely forgotten. WildStar may have had some serious potential to live up to the hype of being the WoW killer, and bits and pieces of it can be seen in some popular WoW killers of today. But
Oh,
this
look at that, Guild
WildStar
Wars.
ultimately burned too bright and too fast.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on WildStar?
I mean, it kind of burned.
Did you ever give it a try when it was out? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Wow.
That's a good video. This is a real good one. I like this.
This
Decent.
video is made possible thanks
I
to our
wanna kill
wonderful
the video.
patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to Jason, B, Brendan, QB,
Is
Foxy,
laggy? Was
Mauve,
it laggy?
Is that
Tanas,
it?
Sierra,
I guess that's it. Wow. Pretty good stuff.
Shampoo, Weeaboo, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being platinum supporters. And an
Okay.
extra special shout out to Steven, Noodles, and Marco for being
Okay, enough for the shoutouts. Anyway, that's it. Did you play WildStar? Probably not. It is what it is. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sid saying thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.